get in there.
A heavy-hitting action for a classical aesthetic. Lock, load, and get ready to engage with enemies of all banners. Hi, Six Snipes here with the debut episode of Season 7 of this series, a rather ambitious project undertaking the coverage of the countless picks for the incredibly diverse gunner class.
Oh wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In all seriousness, this entire series, which only amounts to 5 episodes to cover every single of the 5 guns that gunners have access to, is mostly to make people aware of the fact that the gunner class is easily the most underattended to in terms of the new content, with only 3 choices in any given mode. Sandstorm is in desperate need of new machine guns, which I think are pretty cool, and to promote that, I'll tell you about the ones that we already have. Today, taking a look at what's basically not a machine gun, we have the Galil, and you're watching Gun Guide. The IMI Galil is much like the Uzi of last week's episode, a product of Israel becoming a thing in the 1950s and their very first objective being the one that normally comes at the end of Halo Reach. Having no arms manufacturers to speak of, they basically lived off the supplies and weaponry of Daddy NATO and World War II surplus until valid prototypes could be made. Given their initial default service rifle being the Ethan Hurstel FAL, which had quite the hype train going in virtually any non-United States location during the 50s, problems soon arose with the weapon being mostly too long, bulky, heavy, and generally unreliable when combined with anything but the most extensive maintenance prior to every gunfight and sand. And seeing that Israel, unlike Europe, is here and not here, you can probably see the problem with it. In fact, it got so bad that allegedly during certain battles of one of their earlier wars, soldiers were seen trading their battle rifles for the newly developed Uzis. You can probably imagine what that might be a bit of an issue. So, with the need of a functional rifle for the religious zealot people to fight different religious zealot people, 2 guys named Yaakov Lior and Yisrael Galili had a plan. Having captured scores of Egyptian AKs and very thoroughly evaluating the functions and limitations of that platform, they ended up between that and the M60 and FALs, there was no contest in the desired department of durability and stubborn will to keep shooting. However, with vast open battlefields and a strong need for precision, they knew that combining the best of both worlds was easily the most necessary thing to do. For his work and with what he had created, winning the contract over already well-proven designs like the AR and FAL, as well as prior assistance to the creation of the already legendary Uzi, Galil was the name which went on the gun and went down in the history and hearts of every soldier, knowing him as the father of the rifle. So when everybody who knows anything about war is calling you Daddy Machine Gun, you know you've already done something correct. Taking the receiver of a Finnish RK-62 and chambering in the 5.56 caliber to the United States specifications, which they were in heavy supply of, the product would be a gun which would quite arguably once again be a classic from Israel, which would change the world of weapons forever. So with the history in mind and what I just said there, you can imagine a pretty decent image of the Galil and Insurgency Sandstorm. AK sort of FAL looking thing chambered in 5.56, sort of the aesthetic we have. The RK-62 is basically an AK, so probably a similar fire rate to 600, which again is correct, coming at 632. Not accurate to real life, my research shows even the earliest models cycled to at least 650, but no lower, but whatever. It's 5.56, so probably moderate damage and manageable recoil. And for all intents and purposes, you'd be correct. That is what you get. You do not get much more. Starting off with a very standard fire rate and a very standard caliber, we're getting sort of the same picture of the Uzi, but for riflemen, which isn't necessarily bad, but this is supposed to be a gunner weapon, and really you need to be laying down fire, not running around on a kill-to-kill basis like some infantry pleb. This is where the issues begin. You see, in reality, the Galil would easily be the best rifle in Insurgency Sandstorm, bar none, in terms of economy and efficacy, were it not for one aspect. That it belongs to gunners, because when it comes to gunners, it just doesn't belong. Now, this was added all the way back in 2019 as I suppose some sort of concession prize during a completely spontaneous update. I don't believe a map was added, as this was around the time the power plant was, and the Ace and the Tavor had dropped, and I guess NWI had this lying around from somewhere just waiting to get made into a gun for Sandstorm. Whatever the case was, it went to the gunners for little to no reason. People thought it was weird, and the overall opinion was, I guess I'll take it. Especially the gunners, because they hadn't seen a new gun since literally alpha. It comes with a bipod and 35 round magazine default, which is pretty neat and considered by most to be because the gunners have it. Maybe that's the case, but seeing as the Galil takes a 35 round steel magazine and most variants come with that integral bipod, in real life I'll attribute to competency and research what most people attribute to balance, because let's face it, the people who added this and this to the game aren't really concerned with such a vague and difficult concept. Either way, it does make for a very gunnery gun with the more bullets and default bipod thing going on. So how does it perform as a machine gun? It doesn't. It just doesn't. Here's why. The Galil is 2 points, very cheap. This is good, but on either side, there's a gun with ammo counts in the triple digits default for 1 point more. Really, as a gunner, your job is to take this and then get a better gun with wave 2 or 3 of Outpost that one PvE defense mode hits after you get more credits to use, because in the beginning, having anything at full auto is just a deal. Anything afterward is going to require more bullets, and you will need a bigger gun. That is the Galil's effective use for a gunner. So what's the argument for keeping it? Let's take a look at what the attachments maybe do for this gun. After all, plenty of weapons are make or break depending on what you get. So thank you have access to a 50-round drum mag for 3 points and what is quite honestly the best recoil for it. The Galil gets some of the lowest horizontal recoil base in the game, specifically to negate the fact that the drum mag is going to double that value like it would anything else, meaning more so than other gunner picks, you can run and gun rather effectively, shooting from a standing rather than prone position. Being that your job is literally having bullets, probably use this. You'll want an optic too. The iron sights look neat, but playing a guessing game of which dimension of the fat steel donut the guy you were just looking at is hiding behind isn't funny when you're getting shot at, and earnestly with a naked Galil, this will kill you more as a gunner than thinking that the 35 rounds is enough to be a gunner. I like hollows, but use it with a toggle zoom or go for straight up scopes because you can shoot at ranges, and as a gunner you should be. In terms of grips, I actually quite like the recoil and ADS as they both fix issues you will want to dampen with the drum magazine, but make the gun a blast to use with a straight mag 2 in domination.
No, fuck! I'm not gonna let you get that.
The compensator is obviously great because reducing horizontal recoil with a drum mag is valid, but I keep coming back to the suppressors because of how bassy and high damage it sounds and how badass that makes me feel. With these attachments, you really do see the ability to do some real damage. People have problems pushing when you've passively got more ammo than the average weapon regardless of mag choice, and there's a lot of outgunning and pre-firing in order for this thing. At its very best, at least like this, you're a light grade gunner, sitting up and covering angles and really helping your team advance down the necessary avenues, and for that I credit it. But there's actually more to the Galil, or is there? Because as everyone who plays Sandstorm who has been watching all this time knows, there's actually 2 of them, and you've probably already commented about this already. Oops, that's right, you're the dumb one. I know there are 2 Galils. I say there's 5 gunner picks because saying that the Galil is 2 guns is like saying there's 2 MP5s in Sandstorm.
Yes, but actually no.
The differences between the Galil SAR, which I presume is squad automatic rifle, and the Galil is, well, the wooden one is better. It's actually better. That is the difference. 50 meters per second more velocity, 15 more penetration, and less horizontal recoil to the point where it's more of an insult than a tangible thing. I vividly imagine some developer who's basically 12 being like, well, there's gotta be 2 Galils for each team. This one's gonna be for the terrorists because it looks like an AK and it's gonna have more power and less recoil. And this one's gonna be for security because it's black and tactical and looks cooler. And the head developer of NWI is either not paying attention because he's thinking about how much cooler it would be to have added another rifleman gun for the 12th time, or just so over from last night's partying with the investors who are telling him to add catgirl skins to the game to get all the Fortnite gamers, and he just goes, yeah. And that's how the Galil was designed. Overall, I really do have to reiterate, the Galil is a really good gun. It shoots great, it has bells and whistles other picks would kill for, and on top of all that, it's cheap as all get out. But at the end of the day, it's a gunner weapon, and at the end of the day, 2, maybe 3 people in any lobby are gunners outside of domination. And at the end of the day, when you spend 5 credits to have a 50 rounds 5.56 rifle, and I spend 4 to have a machine gun with 50 rounds of 7.62 NATO AP that's gonna one-shot every time, my team is going to be a lot better off, and that enemy with the actual machine gun is going to turn you into paste.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Cheap, efficient, and lethal through and through. The epitome of a gun, born in crisis and built for war. I actually do like the Galil. It's a very classical piece, and if one is gonna be blatantly better than the other for whatever reason, at least it's this classic aesthetic. And really, with no limits and domination custom servers, you can do whatever you want with what's gonna be a really strong pick. But until next time, when I cover an actual machine gun for real gunners, I'm Six Snipes, this is the Galil, and you've been watching Gun Guide. I'll see you out there in Sandstorm. Oh yeah, there's technically a 3rd Galil, and it's the Ace 52, which in real life is known as the Galil Ace, which basically means you look pretty stupid for commenting that too. Six Snipes wins again, you stupid fuck.